Okay, we're recording. Well, good morning, everyone. As I always do, we're going to do a quick, the Tampa Bay Traffic Safety.com webpage is the location where all of the information for the Safety Academy is located. I'm Anthony Schmott from Tyndall Oliver, District 7 Safety Consultant. If you follow the links over to education, to the Safety Academy, this is where the pertinent information is. Dennis will talk about this, but there are some changes to upcoming webinars. There's one on December 2nd on Roundabout, and the scheduled webinar for December 16th has been rescheduled to a future time in January. Information about the Safety Academy is located here. If you scroll down, you have information on upcoming webinars. You will automatically get the reminders, as you always do, from GoToWebinar via email. This is the location where all the presentations from the past webinars are posted, going back to 2013. And down at the bottom is where the PDH request form is for 2015 for engineers that are seeking professional development hours. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Dennis, and also note that if you have questions during the webinar, I'll be monitoring the chat and we'll be answering those questions along the way.
Can you see my screen? Anthony, can you see my screen?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Let me get to the beginning. This is Dennis Falloon, and for all those that have not heard my voice before, welcome. And for those that have heard it before, welcome to you again. I am the District 7 Safety Academy Coordinator and Consultant, and I welcome you to the 9th webinar for the 2015 Safety Academy Series. And today's topic is the Florida DOT 2014 Median Handbook Overview, which will be presented today by Gary Sokolow, Transportation Planner, Systems Planning, and FDOT Tallahassee. Before he begins, I'm going to kind of go through my little introduction that I normally give. And this is the District 7 Local Agency Traffic Safety Academy. And this academy's purpose is to provide information regarding safety-related issues to enhance your local safety programs. And we do know that we have a number of folks that are not just in District 7 but statewide, and we welcome everybody because I think this is appropriate for all areas of the state of Florida. The third series of webinars began in January, and they usually run between 10 and 12 o'clock, and they will end this year on December 2nd. They're a minimum of 1 hour and no more than 2 hours, and the length of the webinar usually depends upon the complexity of the topic. And without going into a lot of detail, there's this first website here that you can go to register for the webinar topics, and the second website is the link to the web page that Anthony had up on his screen. As Anthony mentioned earlier, first today, the Florida DOT 2014 Median Handbook Overview is the presentation today. But if you look at December 2nd, we will be having a webinar on lessons learned experience with roundabouts that the City of Tampa designed, constructed, and maintained, which is replacing the webinar that was scheduled for December 16th, roadside safety, guardrail safety for designer, and guardrail safety for installers. That will be postponed until sometime in January. You'll be getting a notice on that. Forms are still being processed for the AICP CM credits, so stay tuned to that. And I just always like to highlight the fact that you get notices each month, 2 weeks before the webinar, 2 days before the webinar, and 2 hours before the webinar. So you get enough notice about when the webinars are going to begin. And as we've mentioned before, if you're a professional engineer, you can get PDH credit for this webinar. And this is the link to send your form, and or you can fax it to Larry Hagan. And this is the link. You go to the traffic safety page, and you can go to this link, and then you can get the form to submit. I want to highlight today, I'll always show you this slide. Down here is my email address, dennis5846@earthlink.net. I'm in the process of pulling together the 2016 Safety Academy topics. And if anyone that's attending today have any requests for any certain types of webinars that they feel we need to cover, then if you could email me, that would be great. And if you have an opportunity today before the webinar is over, you want to send a suggested topic in the chat, do that also, and we'll pick that up from there. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Gary.
All right. Let me make sure I get the right screen up. And yes, I'm very lucky today. I got the right screen. Thank you. I appreciate you coming in to listen to this, and just know that I'm here to answer your questions, and I have asked our announcers, sponsors to stop me if there are questions that I can answer during the presentation, and if I'm going to get to the answer sometime later in the presentation, I'll ask you to wait. Okay. As I said, I'm Gary Socolow, and I've been involved with the Median Handbook. There have been 3 of them so far. The first one came out in 1997. It was updated in 2006. It had the word interim on it in 2006, and we finally got around to 2014, a complete rewrite. However, the principles for median design and placement have not really changed greatly since 1997, so that's the good news. But there have been changes to other documents, and there have been changes to our profession, like the use of roundabouts, complete streets, more of an emphasis on multimodalism that has changed some of the focus of this handbook. So we updated the references to the standard index and the plans preparation manual. We now have a Florida intersection design guide, which is an amazing document, and we wanted to include some of the wisdom that we had there also. There's a new chapter, a complete chapter on roundabouts in the Median Handbook. Let me start from the beginning, that everything in this handbook, unless it's stated as a rule or something from the plans preparation manual or our design standards, are really, it's just guidance. It's not to be treated as if this were part of the standard index or part of the plans preparation manual. It was our goal to provide a single document that would have references to our standards and rules, but also have good practice based on experiences and principles that many of you learned in school. We just felt that some of us have been out of school, so long that it's good to have a refresher on some of the basic principles. Okay, we always want you to keep in mind that this is guidance and mostly food for thought, and your professional judgment is still very, very important. With that, I would like to try to get an idea of the familiarity that you might have with this handbook. And so I'm going to launch a poll right now. What is your familiarity with the Median Handbook? And if I'll give you some time to answer here. Got a lively group out there today. I like that. People are answering very quickly. Just give it a few more moments. This is good, as I said. And some of you that are in rooms with people are going to have to make a decision who's going to answer this. But, okay. Almost 90% have voted, so I'm going to share this with you. And as you can see, really well, not the majority, but the greatest group are the ones that know it exists, and I'm glad you're here because I'm going to give you a safety overview of this handbook, not so much a technical overview of the analysis points, and if you're interested in those things, I have a recorded webinar on that, which I'll give you a link to. And I see that almost a quarter of you, this is the first time you've heard about it, so I am extremely pleased. And I'm just as pleased to hear that 20% actually use it, and that makes me really, really happy. Thank you. A restrictive median with well-designed and well-placed median openings is one of the most important tools to create a safe and efficient highway system. If you need to have one reason why medians have a positive benefit, it's because it reduces the number of conflicts. The picture on the left shows a cross-section where there's no median or any separation. You can see the conflict points are everywhere. One way to limit conflicts is with the best way is with a median and well-designed openings. The example on the right is a directional median opening, only allowing left turns in and prohibiting left turns out. This is a design that is well used around Florida for many years, and it really helps a lot. As I said previously, we are moving into becoming more sensitive to the fact that we have a more multimodal environment, or local governments and Florida DOT are trying to do a better job at serving all users of our roadway system. So we are now in our training and in our handbooks mentioning how to look for what is best practice in access management and median openings, as you'll see later, as they affect and impact pedestrians, especially those using transit who need to cross streets, very busy streets, frequently. This is a directional opening that we were talking about before. This is in the panhandle of Florida, and you can see, you can see here that we have it designed in such a way to really discourage wrong-way movement. In other words, to discourage people from coming out of side street or driveway and turning left. But as I think a lot of us know here, you can't make people do everything. And in a study that we were doing a number of years ago, we did find a number of pictures. This is a directional median opening in this place, and the SUV does not really want to abide by the design of it. And I just thought this was interesting. And you know, the person was doing, you know, they figured they could get away with it. And then they see a car coming at them, and they go, oh my God. So, and fortunately there was no crash at that location. And we did research on roadways that were retrofitted with restrictive medians, and one of the locations is Appalachian Parkway here in Tallahassee, pretty much right outside our door. The traffic engineer for the city of Tallahassee at the time, Debbie Danton, felt very strongly that Appalachian Parkway needed to have a restrictive median. One way that she convinced her city commission to work on this was to use some of the traffic cameras to show how dangerous the current situation is. That red box should really be around these people here that are crossing the street. Any of you from Tallahassee might know that La Fiesta has a happy hour on this side, and parking is an issue, and many of our party goers park on this side, and it was just disaster waiting to happen. This is what the road looks like today, and notice that there are sidewalks there in addition to a pretty narrow median. The study that was done by the University, Florida International University, by Dr. Gann, who has done median research for us since he was a graduate student, showed that there was a definite reduction in crashes on Appalachian Parkway before and after. It was a pretty detailed study where they didn't just look at crash rates, but they actually looked at each individual crash record from the 90s up until 2010. Dr. Gann and his associate did another study for us where they looked at Fruitville Road in Sarasota County, and these are just a few of the locations where they mapped out where some of the crashes were. As you can see, the hotter the color, the more severe the conflict, and the head-on and bike ped are the hot conflicts. And so you can see on this section that it went from a lot of what I would consider pretty high risk crashes down here to a few rear-end collisions. And these are all based on a 3-year period. This is another section of Fruitville Road, and you can see again a dramatic decrease in the crashes. And let me point out that they didn't just do a study of the roadways that had medians put into them when they went from 4 or a 5-lane section to a 6-lane divided. All the medians that they did study were, in fact, those where no new lanes were added, and this was the results of having just the median put in and having usually some pedestrian and possibly lighting improvements at the time. Okay. I am going to have another poll here. I'm going to ask you something where we're going to see how much you may know or were listening about how medians improve safety. So I'm launching that. I can tell that this is, you guys have been listening, and I really appreciate it. And I think I got the idea here. I'm going to close it and show you. That everyone was correct. It is all of the above, but by reducing conflict really is the root of simplifying driving and simplifying pedestrian crossing too. So I consider that 100% for all those that answered. Thank you. So just what we said. There's less conflict. It simplifies the driving task. It simplifies the pedestrian task also. As a driver going down the road on a 5-lane section, the arrows basically show you where your eyes need to be scanning. And this is a large area. And simply by putting down a median, the driving task is simplified greatly, and you can see that. And this is one of the main reasons that there will be less crashes. So it reduces conflicts, and it also simplifies where the driver and the pedestrian needs to look for potential conflicts. I wanted to point out that the FDOT Traffic Engineering Manual has extensive information on installing mid-block crossings, which I consider are medians also, and they help our most vulnerable of our road users. This is Bush Boulevard, for those of you that live in the Tampa area, and this is an example of an issue where you have a bus stop that will be used by each individual almost every day, both sides. And on this roadway, there's not a standard intersection. They've used a directional median opening, and that has led to some question about how to serve pedestrians across directional median openings. And this is one way to do it diagonally. I have a street view of that same location, and you can see the traffic devices that are used to help warn drivers of the crossing. This is that same location during the day. We found this was interesting, that this is a Wisconsin example. So this is not just being done in Florida, and we're learning from each other. This actually has a regular traffic signal at it, but you can see the way they have attempted to serve the diagonal crossings of pedestrians here. Now this is a section I'm going to gloss over just a bit because this is not as related to the subject of safety, but it's related to just some of the basic principles about where to put median openings. This was the reason that we started and wrote this handbook. Those of you that know access management standards, the median opening standards, know that they are pretty tough, and they are pretty tough to live up to. So what we tried to do was show, well, if you can't meet the standards, then at least meet the basic standards of traffic engineering that you might have learned maybe even your first year of undergraduate school. And so very quickly, I'll go over it. The first thing you need to do is what I call determine the no zone. Where should there not be a median opening? And it's based on a lot of things, and let's put it together here. Decision, distance, and I'm going to use 45-mile-an-hour design speed here. It should be about 100 feet or more. That's around 2 seconds. And according to our standard index, if you're designing for 45 miles an hour, you need 185 feet for deceleration. And you need, for, especially in large cities, between 200 and 300 feet for the Q. This is separate from the deceleration. Okay, so if you add these numbers up, it's 500 feet or more. So you know off the bat, without being a traffic engineer, that within 500 feet of a signalized intersection, you probably should not have a median open, especially a full movement median opening. Another no-no in placing median openings is within a turn lane. And this is a sample of what happens when you put, most of these have been grandfathered in. They're not, they haven't been putting, we haven't been putting these in for a while, but they're still out there. This one was a particularly interesting case where it crossed a dual left turn lane. Good news is it's gone now. And the other thing that you really need to do is avoid median openings across right turn lanes that are used. What you have is the problem of the Good Samaritan. And the person wants to come here and, the Good Samaritan. And guess what? That's what happens. They end up getting hit by a free turn, a free moving right turn vehicle that their vision was blocked because of the Good Samaritan. And since I believe that you really should learn something every day, and that's what you should do, is you should cross it. You should block it and redesign it. And I've seen this all around the state where our districts are closing median openings. But as we talk about the Good Samaritan, and if those of you who know something about the parable of the Good Samaritan, something that not a lot of people know is that there are still Samaritans. They're a small group, and they live in Israel and the West Bank, and have basically good relations with both Jews and Muslims. But it is a group that is very small, and as the report says here, they're clinging to their ancient traditions. But we still have Samaritans. I was surprised. What you see here is a problem with the design of a median opening. We've been talking about the directional median opening. Well, this is not directional, but it is a very wide open median. And you can see one of the major problems here. Those of you from Tampa probably actually can tell where that is. And that is Fowler. And just wanted you to see that even with the best design that you can get right out of the book, the traffic itself is the problem. It gets in the way of visibility, and you can see it is a madhouse out there. And speaking of sight distance, which is a big issue when it comes to when it comes to safety, one of the biggest things, and I know that many of you are familiar with this, is the left turn lane offset. What you have is a problem with a negative left turn offset where the drivers of these vehicles here cannot see the oncoming traffic. So you just need to be aware of that, and actually if it's not signalized, you should really try to build a positive offset, or if it is signalized and you have a negative offset, you need to work on the signal timing of left turns to try to minimize the problems with the negative offset. This is another view of it. This is a positive offset, but you can see it requires more of that precious substance we call right-of-way, which does get in the way of doing things. Now, those of you that know the presentations I do, I am constantly searching for good examples, good photos, and I was having a real problem finding good drawings with left turn offset. So I would Google those images frequently, and what I found at the top of the list was not what I was thinking, but a lot of pictures of deer. And I was wondering, why is this coming up like this? And I looked into it, since I'm not a hunter, and I found out that when you take that deer to the taxidermist to be mounted, they ask you whether you want that poor animal to have his head turning right or left, and this is a left turn offset here, which had nothing to do with the left turn offset pictures I was trying to get. Oh, probably for 15 years in the standard index under sight distance, we've had two different standards for tree separation in order to abide by reasonable safety and visibility for those people attempting to cross a road with a median, so they can see cars approaching from their right on the opposite side of the road. And so you'll see that we have small diameter trees, and then we have a larger diameter trees. And notice that there is a great big difference between 40-foot spacing and 135. The reason is that with the 135 feet, even though the car gets hidden momentarily, you have 2 full seconds of complete visibility, and that's the way it was done. If you want to know a little bit more about that, you can read that section of the median handbook. Now, this is a question that I'd like to ask, and the question is, the reason that we have the two, to go back, the reason we have these two different standards is because there was a tree that people really wanted to have in the median. Local governments, even our own landscaping people, and it caused a problem because those trees, when grown, they are over 11 inches, and as I said, can actually hide a car approaching from your right on the opposite side. So what was the tree that people really wanted to put in the median that led to these guidelines for larger trees? And I will give you one hint, and that is it is the state tree. So I'm going to launch this poll, see how many people know what the state tree is. Yeah, this one's a little harder. This one's a little harder to do than some of the other ones because it has nothing to do with traffic, or very little to do with traffic, and unless you happen to be a landscape person, you might not know. All right. With the majority of you voting on this, I'm going to close and I'm going to share this with you. And you can see, most people thought it was the sable palm, and they are correct. They are correct. It is the sable palm. And that is the tree, that is our state tree, and led to these new standards that were done. And so a little bit about our state tree. These are some sable palms, and one of the reasons that it is a state tree is it grows all over Florida. The Seminoles and the Miccosukees, like the indigenous Floridians before them, constructed housing using the leaves and trunks of this tree, and they're called chickees. It is also a source of food and an important symbol today for modern Florida Indian culture. And to show you that we didn't always have that tree as our state tree, I wanted to point out the old state seal had the cocoa palm as the state tree, and you'll also notice I don't know where these mountains are, but I don't think it's Mount Dora. Okay, and so they had the mountains, and I'll point out another thing. If you could see real closely that the Native American here casting flowers is wearing a Western Plains headdress. So there were a number of problems with the original state seal, but I think we got it right now. Okay. You will hear it at every public meeting you ever have when you are trying to put a median in or close median openings or redesign them, and that is U-turns are unsafe. And research shows otherwise. On the other hand, just because the research shows that U-turns, and we got some really good research based on video done in the Tampa area on 8 corridors there, where we looked at vehicles making direct left-hand turns and those making the right-hand turns or making a U-turn, and found considerably less evasive maneuvers with those vehicles that are turning right and making a U-turn, even with the greater amount of distance they had to travel. So that doesn't mean U-turns are always going to be safe. It means you got to plan for them. This is US 27 north of Ocala, and some of you may have been involved in the design of this road, but they put in patches of paving in order to help negotiate these U-turns, especially in this area, which is horse country, and people with trailers. You can see some of them are isolated. You can see this one is an isolated one. And they also designed some of these U-turn turnaround helps, incorporated them into existing intersections. At signalized intersections, without a doubt, there is definitely a conflict, and it's not a conflict that has no answer to it, but you just do need to be aware of it, needing extra space, and sometimes changing some of the signal patterns. We did something back in 1997 that nobody had ever done, and those of you that are familiar with a blog called Mike on Traffic, which comes out of Minnesota, probably one of the more popular downloads they have was the U-turn sight distance that we created back in 1997. It was based on AASHTO standards in 1997. The U-turn sight distance is greater because of the maneuver itself. So this has never been made part of AASHTO. It's never been made part of our standard index, though I have all the calculations to show where it came from. But this is a good guide that you can use for sight distance for unsignalized median opening U-turns. I want to say that those of you that have dealt with medians, especially putting in medians, that we have an issue that we're not very popular at public meetings. And back in 2004, I got a phone call from a reporter at the Orlando Sentinel showing me a study that they themselves had done. The city, not the city, but the Orlando Sentinel, they looked at state statistics and found that State Road 50 running through Orlando was one of the highest crash locations or corridors in the entire state. So they researched it and had a series of articles in 2004 on this. What they did is, this was from January 2001 to 2004, and found that there were 80 deaths on this stretch of State Road 50 from rural Orange County all the way over to the other side of rural Orange County. And this is the city of Orlando. And what they did not only is to take a look at the number of deaths, but they looked at what actually happened. They found that the deadliest section, and I'll call it section 5 because this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They did use that standard DOT crash rate and found that it was 8 compared to the average of 1.8 around the state. And so they did some more work, and I just wanted to show you something here. We're just going to look at that one section 5. Some of you might be familiar with this area. This is State Road 436 and its intersection with State Road 50. This is Goldenrod Road. And this section, again, 4 years. Each of these red numbers is a death. And not only, and so these are the people that died on that road. But what was very telling to me, not only their names and ages, but what they were trying to do when they were hit and died. And there it is, mostly trying to turn left or walking across. And, you know, the use of the people's names was a very powerful tool for the newspaper article. So with that, this, I hope, lets us know that when we're being attacked at a public meeting, this is who we fight for. This is not a matter of just somebody being inconvenienced. This is a matter of saving lives. And access management, though we have changed our focus for the better, it has always been about safety. And I just want to leave you with some resources. The handout should have live links, and this is the top one is a live link to the actual handbook, and the bottom link is a link to a YouTube version of the webinar that was given. That's more technical than the one I gave today, but with less of an emphasis on safety, more of an emphasis on the technical side of how to measure distance between median openings to best handle the traffic. So I'd like to thank you. There's my information to get in touch with me. We have lots of materials here. Something that I did not post is that we have a 3-minute video that is very bright and it to the point on the benefits of medians. And if you are interested in that, let me know. Let Anthony or Dennis know, and I can get you the video or a link to it. It's also on the YouTube channel. So with that, questions?
Actually, about that YouTube video, Gary, if you can send me the link to it, I'll go ahead and post it on the Tampa Bay Traffic Safety site. We have a featured video down there, and we have, I believe it's actually part of your YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
We have a complete video page. We took some of the YouTube channel that you have. It's fantastic.
Good, thank you. Yeah. So here's the deal. I have a professional YouTube page, which I put, our webinars, and there's lots of good material now on there. But it's my professional one. It is. I haven't had it approved through any office. I try to be as professional as possible on there, but just be aware that it's not an official DOT. It's more for the convenience of the people who we do training for. But yeah, I will get that to you.
Yeah, that'd be great. At the bottom of the Safety Academy page, actually, I'll share my screen real quick and show you that. Change presenter to me. I actually, and this is where I'll post it. Here, let's turn my camera back on. Why not? At the bottom of this page here, I've embedded a video, so we kind of have a featured video.
Ah, okay.
This came from your site, and we have a video page here where we've taken the YouTube and embedded some of the videos right on here. So if you have any favorites or any, send me a link of some of the ones, and we can add them to this page. And kind of, I'll put a link here to your page if that's okay with you. And
oh God, yes. Yeah. Yeah, we have. I try to put as much that could be helpful on that page, and we do more here than access management and medians. We do quality level of service, and we are also involved in the Site Impact Handbook, which we have a series of webinars still ongoing. But they're all available on the my channel, and you're welcome to it. I'd like to get more people to view some of these things, but a 1-hour video is just not exciting without being able to ask questions. So that's why I want to know if there are any questions.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to kind of cross promote your site, because it really is. There's a lot of info on there.
Gary, this is
Yes.
Dennis. I just want to mention too, Anthony, did you post his handouts on the webpage yet?
Yes, his presentation is posted on the webpage, and if you look at the handouts in the GoToWebinar window itself, the handout of the presentation should be there as well.
Right, and all those handouts have the live links in them currently.
So just so the attendees know that they can get access to all that through that site. So. Are there any questions?
I don't see any questions in the chat at the moment, other than someone saying that palms are technically grass and not a tree. Therefore,
that is great. That's great. It reminds me of Ripley's "Believe It or Not" in my day, where.
Did you see the question there about what are some of the ways to?
Yeah, Rudy's question.
Yeah, answered by Rudy.
I'll get to Rudy.
Median openings and noises.
Yeah, that's the handbook. Something that we've actually done a couple studies to identify locations to try to make this a little bit more consistent, Gary. But as you drive around, median noses are delineated in a variety of fashions. Sometimes you've got nothing there. Sometimes you have the post with keep right. Sometimes it has the diamond, the 9-pin. Sometimes it has the flex post. Sometimes it's the larger one. They used to be yellow and green, and when I asked my non-traffic engineering friends what those meant, no one had any idea. Now they're. Can you talk about median nose delineation and some of the different ways that they're handled and kind of best practices? Because it seems to vary area to area.
Well, so much for consistent, repeatable, and predictable, I guess, when it comes to those median noses. But it's like roundabouts, we keep learning what's best. And we also learn that what we professionals see is not the same thing that real drivers see. So that's why we have to keep learning. I have no answers on consistency for those signs and markings.
Do you have any thoughts on what I term the inverse relationship between better access management and safety, where although, I mean, it's the unintended consequences. As you have your road with your two-way left turn lanes, for example, lots of conflict points, it's dangerous, driveways all over the place, people are coming from everywhere. But as a result of the additional conflict points and the stop and go and the weaves and the side swipes, you have lower speeds. Now you go through and you add some raised medians, you do some directional openings, your speeds increase now. It's a much nicer road, it's safer, but greater speed typically is related to higher injury severities. So you have less crashes, but perhaps more severe crashes. Can you speak to that any?
I would, without seeing any real research on that, I would tend to disagree with 5-lane sections being safer in any instance than a 4-lane divided. And if speed is the issue, and I know it is, we are trying to, then I think it should be handled through things like the addition of bike lanes that are going to be wider and narrower lane widths. Might be a better way to control speed than to just keep that median open like that. And I'm saying that really for those locations where there's a quarter mile between signals where people can cross. Because with that quarter mile, if you're in between those signals, you're not going to walk to the signal. You're going to walk across, and you are going to be invisible to a good percentage of people who are driving there. So I believe even if the speed does increase with the addition of a median, I believe that the pedestrian refuge will provide more than sufficient offset for that speed. But if we do want to control speed better, manage speed better, perhaps we should do it in ways that by some of the techniques that we're learning with complete streets, through the shallows, the narrower lanes, and maybe texturized, or what looks like texturized areas on the side. And that's those are my thoughts on that. Those are off the cuff.
It's an interesting discussion. I mean, I've heard some folks say that. Yeah, I mean that there is a bit of an inverse relationship, and speeds do go up a little bit. But I tend to agree with you that it's definitely safer to have the medians. But I just wanted to point that out to the audience so that it's not putting in medians isn't a fix-all. You know, there are unintended consequences, and there's things to look at downstream. And you know, are you shifting a problem further to an area? If you close a median at one location, then the traffic that used to turn at that location now has been shifted somewhere else. People are still going to make that movement.
Correct.
So if you control your access too much, now your signals are going to be, you know, you're going to have nothing but U-turns for the people that were making direct lefts. So it's a balancing act between your access and your safety.
We do need to accommodate those U-turns better, and there are different ways to do it, and they're addressed in the median handbook. In District 4, Fort Lauderdale area, you'll see some places where they have signalized U-turns in as you approach an intersection, because we do know some things about U-turning operations. They take longer than the direct left, and so at some point it might be better to have a U-turn as you approach a signalized intersection that's separate. But without a doubt, you can't just forget about U-turns and just assume they'll be safer. The other thing is that I believe one of the reasons Florida's access management program has been successful is the fact that driveways are not our major emphasis. It is the median that is the major emphasis, because the left turns are the most treacherous. Look at that. We went right to it.
This is actually in Pasco County, down the street from my house.
Oh, good.
We have a, and actually this signal head has been modified since Street View. This is a U-turn as opposed to a left turn now. So it's a little U-shaped.
Yeah, I've seen those. I'd like to get a picture of the actual U-turn signal head in operation.
I have one on my phone that I can send to you.
Good.
When it was installed, I went, wow, look at that, and I took a picture because that's the kind of driver I am. I was stuck with the red light. So
I'm sure of it.
Phone while driving, but yeah, this is neat. We have the U-turn. What happened here is that there's a mall that is located right here, and there is no direct access out of it. So it is a right and then U-turn at the signal to come out or to come through this direction. So there's just a lot of U-turns, and the left turn just leads to a neighborhood, so it's not many people.
Interesting. All right.
Median barriers for pedestrians. Do you have any thoughts on?
No, I have to say I do not have thoughts on it, because I have heard but not read different. I've heard that the research goes both ways on their effectiveness. I know here in Tallahassee, near the university, they put in a very large fence, but they also added some extra crossings, I think hawk-type crossings for the students. And I don't know how they've worked. And I do know that barriers to crossing roads by using fencing is popular in other areas of the world. It just has not been used much here, so I don't know much about it. Let me just say, because I haven't really mentioned it, here at DOT, we have a relatively new policy from 2014 on complete streets. And we've been through this year, 2015, meeting as a team to try to determine any of the practices here, access management, design, that get in the way of good complete streets practices. And without going into detail, there are some access management standards that I think that need to be relooked at. One is our signal spacing. That's the easiest one. I think our signal spacing needs to be more of an issue handled by traffic operations and not by anything written in an access management standards. When the gold standard is half-mile signal spacing, then what's the poor pedestrian to do?
Talking about the median barriers, one of my favorite examples is on the University of South Florida campus. They have over by the Sun Dome a very large, you can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
They have a very large parking lot over here that's kind of for the Sun Dome and for the campus rec, but then the classes are on this side over here. And this parking lot used to be a sheet flow of pedestrians crossing across through all of this. So they installed hedges along the parking lot here and also in the median to channelize the pedestrians, and it works pretty well.
Okay.
I mean, this is, it's inside of the university. You see the hedges, you can't get to the street, and then over here they have these hedges that come down, and these have grown up quite a bit since this was taken, but there's a different type of bush as you approach the actual crosswalk, so the profile of the fence and the hedges decreases so you have sight distance as you approach it. So this is I always kind of show this as an example of one that I think works.
Yeah, the one I'm thinking of at Florida State University is much longer and much more intense, and I don't know if I'm as good at finding things on as you on Google, but I'm going to give it a try here.
I'll make you the presenter.
Yeah, would you? Okay, great. Make sure I got the right thing showing. Yeah. So this is Tennessee Street. This is the university. This is where the president lives. And dormitories, lots of good places to eat and drink. So you take the little person, oops, great. Yeah, so that's what the barriers look like along Tennessee Street.
That's an actual fence, not just
shrubs. Yeah. And you can see it goes on, and that's the pedestrian signal there. And can I say, very controversial. They really, yeah, it was very controversial. But no matter how you feel about the barriers, and they point out that I think these medians are 4 feet. They're really small. But
Gary.
Yeah.
To Anthony, is Rudy still on? For some reason, I just can't bring that up.
Rudy, let me look for him. Yes.
Unmute him because he worked with the DOT to come up with some of this, I believe. Gary, did you work with Rudy Ums?
No, I really, I had nothing to, sorry.
You're unmuted.
He might not be available. Rudy? Okay, I know he...
Yeah, I'm sure that's very effective, that barrier there. I mean, there's always the concern of the young college student trying to jump the fence and kind of getting their shoelace caught on it, and there could be some issues there.
Yeah.
I hear you coming back.
Okay, there's Rudy. Rudy.
Yes.
You see what's been done on Tennessee Street? I think you worked on that with the RSAs.
Yeah, we did. That was a fantastic project, and one of the things I liked about it was there were so many challenges and opportunities, and there was a willingness to make a difference. That was so good to work with, and everybody, the district was on board, and everybody was moving forward. That was a great project, and you know, it's rewarding. But one of the key things about that was that the district was committed, the district and the city. We met with the mayor, we met with the police chief, we met with fire people, we met with the school, university police. So we also met with the university police at 2 in the morning to look at the things down there. Everyone was on board. There was nobody, they were whatever. We met with students. Yeah, we're ready to go. So that, I think, was a real bonus, that they were able to use the great things that Gary's been talking about. And I wanted to comment that, Gary, I've taken your stuff and your ideas and the principles around to other states and local agencies and shared them and say, this is a great idea. And so I've worked that into some of the training courses and the designs.
Great. No, that's fantastic. I appreciate that. I really do.
So you're not just you're just not a local guy, just not a state guy. You're nationally renowned. And I don't like to miss any of your training courses because they're so informative.
I couldn't ask for a better promotion of my stuff than that. Thank you.
And it's logical. It's practical and logical. That's the great thing that I like about it.
Yeah. It really, a lot of this came from people like Theo Petrich and, you know, who were traffic engineers, and I'm not, who said, look, this is not really rocket science. This is traffic engineering 101, but you gotta look at more than just one side of it. You gotta look at both sides of it, and whoa, it just opened up. Thank you.
Exactly.
And for the attendees still online, just so you know, Rudy is a former FHWA employee working for many years with FHWA and has a lot of experience, and he's helped out in District 7. And he does live in Wisconsin, but I just wanted to share with you that he was a participant in the study of this in Tennessee Street in Tallahassee. And he's done other ones around the state.
And I'm very pleased that DOT, you know, reached out for that help. As a person who's been there at 2 o'clock in the morning many, many years ago.
we were observing the people who were there.
Yeah. I was being one of the people there. But.
Yeah. What was interesting about Tennessee Street was the fact that the characteristics of the street changed throughout the day, which became even a neater challenge. In the morning, you got students in rush hour. During the day, you have delivery people and people going to lunch. and back and forth to school. In the evening, you have the rush hour. Then it gets real quiet, and then it builds up again for the students when they're moving around and studying at the different establishments and debating things as students do. So the characteristics, so from like 5 in the morning until 3 in the morning, it changes constantly. And that was one of the things that we had to deal with, and that was a good thing. And medians, when I go to a training course or talk to folks, I say the number one thing you can do to enhance pedestrian safety is to consider a median. Number one, you give them a refuge, those 4 things that you had at the beginning that were all, pedestrian and reduced conflicts. Then median is the number one thing in pedestrian safety that you can do, that you should consider to reduce the number of fatalities, and the restriction of people crossing. Because people cross like water across the stream. It's the point of least resistance, so they'll go to wherever that least resistance is and cross whichever is easier. And that's how people get hit and killed.
I think, Gary, what you really hit on, really struck to me today, was the fact that while there may be inconvenience with changes by putting in medians and helping out those that are pedestrians or on bikes or in a car, there might be some sort of inconvenience, but the number one thing there is safety, as much safety as possible for all those players in the roadway.
Yes.
So,
and
that should be the priority.
Yeah. That's the reason that the 2004 article from the Orlando Sentinel, it's interesting. Sometimes it takes a newspaper to wake us up, because they're not putting together boring statistics. They're looking for something that's understandable to the non-professional, and they really, if you were to Google Dangerous State Route 50 Orlando, you'll see that it woke a lot of people up. County, DOT, the Florida Highway Patrol, and they've really tried to do a much better job.
Yeah, we get some of that every year when AAA puts out its most dangerous intersection list.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes they're not on our hard crash bot listing because of the way that we're calculating things, and we got to go look at those locations.
Yeah.
Do you see any movement? Like this is an innovative kind of different. I would say that this is ahead of the developmental standards for median barriers that the state is developing. But do you see any other trends towards sort of innovative approaches? Like the Z crossings in the medians, like on Fletcher Avenue, or roundabouts, alternative left turns. All this stuff.
Yeah, all of that is being discussed in the forum of Complete Streets. One of the things that I believe, if we want Complete Streets to become a reality, is to let our professionals know when we talk Complete Streets, we're not necessarily speaking of having French cafes on every corner on a state highway. The Complete Streets means that we serve the people who are using the road. And so sometimes the people that are using the road are in high-speed suburban areas. We don't just say, you can't put a cafe down there and you can't put beautiful street furniture in there. That's not a complete street. No, we need to be looking at the people, and this is the people using that roadway to catch their bus and cross. And that's where we have to look at these designs like you see in Fletcher Avenue, and to work on even improving those. Yeah. And Federal Highway has been really good about promoting this. Yeah.
Anthony, any other questions?
No, there are no other questions in the chat. I'm kind of running the show with questions for Gary. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you have any other closing statements. I mean, if you want to talk about maybe any challenges, final thoughts on public involvement or consideration of emergency vehicles, kind of like some of those unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Again,
the emergency vehicles, we do hear a lot, but one of the reasons we use, and you got the picture right up there, the type of curbing we use on our medians are mountable, and that should not really have a detrimental effect to the emergency vehicles. And usually, fire stations, hospitals have their own median openings, which are, some of them actually have their own signals, and that's the way it should be. And a lot of times people who bring up the point that, if this is going to take 30 seconds off of that emergency vehicle getting to my house, you don't want to necessarily, they're putting you on the spot, but on the other hand, when they moved into their house, did they think how far they were from the hospital? Is it, if it was that important for them to save 30 seconds when, God forbid, they're having a heart attack, maybe they should have also considered moving closer to the hospital. And you'll find that a lot of this talk about emergency response isn't from people. They're not from people that live close. They're from people who live way out. So it's just an emotional argument they want to use in many cases.
Well, Gary, I really appreciate the presentation. It was great.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to do it, and appreciate everybody who was there and participating. And I got lots of materials and willing to share them. It's all public domain, and that's what it's here for. And again,
Rudy, thank you for your comments, and Anthony, I appreciate your help. And if there's no other questions, and to everyone that was attending that's still on, thank you so much, and looking forward to having you attend on October 21st.
Great. Well, thanks for attending. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close or stop the recording, and we'll stay on the line for a few minutes if anything else comes up.